Hi Year 8s, this is your revision video for your biology test. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to watch this revision video before you take your biology test this week so that you can have some last minute revision. It's been quite some time since you studied the sections of chapter 7, 8 and 9, so I hope this summarises everything that you need to know in a very short amount of time so that you can get on with your test. Your test is 30 marks, which should take between 30 minutes and 45 minutes, and it consists of roughly around about 10 marks in the multiple choice section, and you've got some short response questions as well that you need to do. So without further ado, here we go. So we start off with 7.1. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to have your textbook in front of you. You can actually go through it yourself, and you can pause the video whenever you want to, and you can go back over certain sections. So the breathing system, very important for us to understand, particularly, there's quite a few people who are actually asthmatics, and you can actually see the whole of the breathing system using a technique called gamma scanning, where the patient inhales a radioactive gas that we can detect using a gamma camera. Okay, in the book, you can actually see that here's the left lung. This is the left lung of the actual patient, which is this one over here. You can see that that's particularly affected because the gas can't get through. So, the structure of the breathing system, very important. Make sure that you understand that the function of the breathing system is to move air in and out of the lungs. And also, quite a critical point here, the functions of the gas is to exchange functions of the lungs is to exchange the gases oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air in the lungs and the blood. Now, where that takes place is at the alveoli. So the alveoli are here, okay, and at the alveoli there is a process that takes place which relies upon the movement of particles from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Now, that is called diffusion. So what you actually have is when the person breathes in, you have more oxygen on the inside of the alveoli than you have in the blood capillary that passes on the outside of the alveoli. So the oxygen diffuses across, into the blood system, and another gas exchange takes place. You've got carbon dioxide, which is a relatively high concentration in the blood. So that carbon dioxide moves and diffuses into the chamber of the alveoli, and that carbon dioxide can then be exhaled out. So the function of the lungs is to exchange the gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide. That exchange is called gas exchange. The process that takes place is diffusion, and you have oxygen moving from the alveoli into the capillary, and you have carbon dioxide moving from high concentrations in the blood, in the capillary, to the lower concentration, which is in the alveoli, and that's how the breathing works. Now, the lungs are situated in the upper part of the body called the thorax. So you can expect us to give you some diagrams of the thorax. You must make sure that you can figure out what all of these labels are if you have them covered. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through each and every single one. I'm going to hide it like this. You can pause the video and then see if you can remember it. Okay, pause the video. Okay, all right, there was a trachea. All right, now pause the video, look away, look back. Okay, that was the right bronchus. Pause the video. Okay, play it. Bronchial. Pause the video, then play it. Okay, that was the alveoli. Pause the video. Okay, play it. Nose. Pause the video. Just a second. There we go. Pause the video. There, right? Okay, that was the mouth. Pause the video. Ribs. Here we go. All right. Look away. Just right now. Look away. Pause the video. Okay, that's the left lung. Right, and pause the video. That's the diaphragm. Okay, diaphragm. Diaphragm is right underneath here. Okay, diaphragm. Make sure that you can spell diaphragm correctly as well. So the lungs are situated in the upper parts of the body called the thorax, protected by the rib cage. The thorax is separated from the lower part of the body, the abdomen, by this sheet of muscle called the diaphragm. Okay. Now, air enters the body through the nose and mouth, travels past the back of the throat into the trachea. The trachea then splits into two tubes called the right and left bronchi. Okay, so this is the trachea. Okay, so another name for it is a windpipe. Now, it's the left and the right. Remember, we're thinking about that person, so it's their left. That's the left bronchus, right bronchus. Okay, and then it divides into smaller passages, smaller tubes called bronchioles. And at the end of the bronchioles are bunches of tiny air sacs called alveoli. And it is across the walls of the alveoli that gas exchange occurs. Okay? So, if you gently rub the front of your throat, you can feel hard ridges. These are the C-shaped ridges of cartilage that keeps the support there so it doesn't collapse. And when you bend your neck, you don't choke yourself. Okay? The gap in the C runs at the back of the trachea. The gap is there so that cartilage does not rub against the esophagus, the tube that carries the food to the stomach. Now, specialized cells called goblet cells line the trachea. Okay, so here is the trachea. Okay, and specialized cells line the trachea. They're called goblet cells, and they release mucus. Okay, and then you have these ciliated cells. These ciliated cells. Okay, so if cells were hairy, the hairs would be cilia. Okay, now the goblet cell. So this is actually the over here on this side where I'm pointing, that's actually the tube, that is your trachea, and then this is the ciliated cells, and then these are the actual cells that make up the walls, the inside walls. Okay, so the specialized cells called goblet cells, you can actually see this mucus coming through, line the trachea. That's what's causing me to have a frog in my throat at the moment. They secrete a thick, sticky liquid called mucus, and that mucus traps dirt, and it traps microorganisms. And the cells lining the trachea have many tiny hair-like structures called cilia on their surface. The cilia are constantly moving to sweep that mucus up and out of the trachea, and that helps to keep the lungs clear. Now, it is true also that you do have cilia in your bronchioles. You do have cilia in your bronchus as well as your trachea, okay? So all the blue parts here. Just a very quick note about asthma. People who suffer from asthma can find it hard to breathe. An asthma attack is often triggered by mites, fur, pollen, smoke, exercise, cold air, or a chest infection. If you have that irritation, the muscles around them can irritate the lining of the airways. So if one of these irritates the lining, the muscles around them contract, it narrows the airways, and the lining often becomes swollen and sticky, and it just makes it very, very difficult to breathe. Okay, now, moving on to gas exchange, okay? So, big theme here is the movement of oxygen from the air into the blood and the movement of carbon dioxide in the opposite direction takes place through diffusion, okay? Movement of particles from an area with high concentration to low concentration. And the blood returning to the lungs from the body contains a high concentration of carbon dioxide, a low concentration of oxygen. And the air in the alveoli contain a higher concentration of oxygen than the blood and a lower concentration of carbon dioxide. So here's a clear picture of it, okay? All right, so you've got the alveoli, and you've got a couple of things that really do help this diffusion process. You've got a lovely moist lining on the inside. Now that moist lining dissolves the gases on the inside of the alveoli, increases their concentration, so you actually have a high concentration gradient. That oxygen will zip across, okay? Got a good blood supply, thin walls. Wall of the capillary is only one cell thick, okay? And you've got your red blood cells. You can see your red blood cells going through. Nice supply. The wall of the alveolus is only one cell thick, okay? So these alveoli, they're only tiny air sacs. They're found at the end of the bronchioles in the lungs, provide a large surface area for gas exchange. Did you know if your lungs were flattened out, they would actually cover the area of a tennis court? I've always found that fascinating. Okay, so each alveolus is well maintained by breathing. Steep concentration gradient for the diffusion of oxygen into the blood and carbon dioxide out of the blood. So if your concentration is high of a gas, it will move down this concentration gradient. The gradient is the same as the slope, moves down the concentration gradient, okay? So the oxygen moves down the concentration gradient into the capillary. The carbon dioxide moves down the concentration gradient from the capillary into the alveoli. Only one cell thick. So the gases don't have far to diffuse, okay? And the lining is moist, so that it really, really speeds up the diffusion because the concentration of the gases just increases in the liquid. Each alveolus has a good blood supply to transport gases and to maintain this deep concentration gradient. Now we do get gas exchange surfaces in other organisms as well. So these are stomata, okay? So plants do have tiny holes on their leaves, okay? It's called stomata, all right? Gases enter in the leaf through the stomata on the other side, okay? And fish have to obtain oxygen from the water. Okay, so gases are exchanged as water passes over organs called gills. I remember I showed you pictures of fish when I was teaching you. Okay, made of gill filaments which have a good blood supply, large, thin surface for gas exchange. Okay, great for diffusion, great for gas exchange. Okay, now insects also have tiny holes along their abdomen called spiracles. Okay, here are the spiracles. Gases move in and out of these holes, which are connected to a network of tubes called trachea, and that carries oxygen to respiring cells and carbon dioxide away from the cells. Okay, so the mechanism of breathing, okay, it's very, very crucial. All right, so you move your muscles to alter the volume of the chest cavity. This results in the movement of air into and out of the lungs. The muscles involved in breathing are the diaphragm and the muscles between the ribs. These muscles contract when you breathe in and relax when you breathe out. Now look, what you need to do is you need to look at these two figures, okay? And you need to identify what is happening to each part when you are breathing in and what is happening to each part when you are breathing out, okay? So air's forced into the lungs. Rib cage moves up and out when you're breathing in, up and out. Feel your own, okay? Rib muscles contract. Feel your own rib muscles as you breathe in, okay? They get hard, okay? Diaphragm contracts, moves down, okay? So your diaphragm moves down, it increases the volume in this chest cavity, okay? The pressure in the chest decreases, so air is forced into the lungs, it just goes whoosh, right? And then to push that out, your diaphragm relaxes, it moves upwards, whoosh, all that gas comes out, it's forced out the lungs. The rib cage moves down and in, you've got to know that, that's down and in for out, okay? Down and in for out, okay? So the rib cage moves down and in for out. It moves up and out for in, down and in for out. All right? Rib muscles relax. Okay, so it's like the opposite. Diaphragm relaxes. We talked about that. The volume in the chest cavity decreases. Everything's pushed out. So there's less volume there. It's like squeezing a bag. So the pressure in the chest increases. Air's forced out of the lungs. Okay? All right? We had these floating around in the lab when I taught you. Okay, we had these models to show the mechanism of breathing. We had people running around the lab. We had a competition. Remember the big tubes that were brought into the lab? The big bags, big thin bags, measuring lung volume. Okay, all right. So, final part is the heart and the circulatory system. Okay, it's made up of the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. So this is what happens to all of that oxygen which whizzes around. Okay, so the heart, listen, it's a double pump. Okay, so it's two halves, all right? Okay, remember I sliced the heart and demonstrated it in front of you on the video? Okay, so the right side of the heart pumps deoxygenated blood, okay? The right side of the heart, so that's this side, okay? The right side, because it's the opposite to us. This is the left for us, but it's the right to the patient, okay? So the right side of the heart pumps deoxygenated blood, which is high in carbon dioxide, low in oxygen, to the lungs. That whizzes off to the lungs, okay? High in carbon dioxide, low in oxygen, right? So it picks up the oxygen, diffusion, remember? Diffusion, gas exchange, releases carbon dioxide, high concentration gradient out from the blood into the alveoli, okay? Thin blood vessels, all right? Okay, so way back where you got the lungs, carbon dioxide diffuses out the blood, oxygen is collected from the air, then blood leaving the lungs, therefore rich in oxygen, low in carbon dioxide, return to the left side of the heart. So it comes out here. Now, I remember we had lots of people getting this pathway wrong. So blood going into the heart from the body, low oxygen, high carbon dioxide, follows this pathway, okay? Goes to the lungs and then comes back from the lungs, okay? From the lungs, goes through here, this atrium over here, and then goes down here, the ventricle, right? Pumped out, and then it's got high oxygen and it's got low carbon dioxide, goes off to the body, okay? All right, structure of the heart, all right? And both of those happen at the same time, all right? So we did talk about blocked arteries. coronary arteries. We did a lot of work on that atherosclerosis. Okay, so I believe I've already assessed you on that one. Okay, and we talk about the blood. We've already assessed you on parts of the blood as well. So read that, but just be aware of it. But the parts that I'm really going to be testing you on, because you were finding that a little bit awkward, was pathway through the blood, pathway through the heart. Okay, right. So move on, and let's have a look. So when we were studying the heart rate, got you running around outside. Okay, exercise helps keep the heart healthy. All right. So what happens when you exercise? Your heart rate goes up. All right. You can actually see. You can actually see after 2 minutes. All right. These students were asked to run around. Okay. Why did their heart rate go up? Well, their heart rate went up because they had to try and supply their respiring cells with oxygen and with glucose. Okay. That was a very, very important one. Right. Okay. Aerobic respiration. What is respiration? The actual respirations, that's the release of energy from food. Right, pay attention, okay? Respiration is the release of energy from food. It happens inside cells, okay? And it also allows you to have growth and repair, all right? So we need that stored energy for all the processes. Right, here we go. This is a big one, right? Aerobic respiration, okay? This is a respiration which is a release, which releases energy from food, okay? All right, so it allows the release of energy from food. It uses up oxygen and it uses up glucose, which is that store of energy, and it produces carbon dioxide. It produces water, okay? And in that you are also release some energy, okay? So that is the definition of aerobic respiration. It's the release of energy from food using oxygen and glucose to produce carbon dioxide and water. Okay, very, very clear there. All right, make sure that that is in your head. All right, before you do your test. Okay, so that glucose, those glucose molecules contain stored chemical energy, right? The oxygen comes from the air that we breathe in. We talked about that already. Now, make sure that you know the differences between inhaled air, that's the air that we breathe in, and exhaled air, the air that we breathe out. So what's happening? The oxygen levels are going down, the carbon dioxide is going up, the water vapor is going up. We did the experiments in the labs. We did the lime water. We did the thermometers, and we did the cobalt chloride paper. Okay, I asked you to do a homework on that to go through all of those, so it should be in your head. Okay, we also covered quite extensively aerobic respiration and exercise. Okay, and what happens when you have not enough oxygen reaching you, if your body's not fit enough, and your body switches over to anaerobic respiration, you get an oxygen debt, and there's a recovery time as well. Okay, so you get lactic acid forming with the absence of oxygen, with a little energy. It's not as efficient because there's still stores of energy that is locked up in the lactic acid. Eventually that lactic acid will break down in your body. Okay, right. We talked about anaerobic respiration in yeast. Okay, and the main equation for that is glucose reacts to form carbon dioxide and ethanol. This is when we actually did the experiments to make the ethanol, which is the main constituent in hand sanitizer. Now, moving on to chapter 9, the skeletal system. Make sure that you know that cartilage is on the cover of certain bones, okay, and you've got certain parts of your body that's made of cartilage. It's softer than bone because it contains fewer calcium compounds. Okay, covers the end of limb bones to reduce friction, acts as a shock absorber. It also makes up our ear and nose. Okay, now functions of the skeleton. Pay attention. Okay, supports the body, it allows movement. The actual marrow inside makes blood cells. Okay, protection. Cranium protects your brain. Rib cage protects all of your organs in your thorax. Vertebral column protects your spinal cord. Pelvic girdle protects female reproductive organs. Okay. Now I'm not expecting you. I do not expect you to memorize all of these bones only if you are one of my A-star students, okay? But at the same time, you know, tarsals, metatarsals, phalanges, I know the kids who were in my class who got caught out on that, so get someone to help you, okay? So, do you know what all of these labels are, okay? Cover them all up, one at a time. Pause it if you need to, okay? All right, there we go. So I'll just go through those. You can pause it, test yourself, okay? Pause the video, all right? Pause the video on each of these, okay? Do you know these parts? Pause the video, pause the video, pause the video. Distract yourself, pause your video, pause the video. Okay, I'm going to go on this side, so here we go. Pause the video, you know that one? Pause the video, pause the video, pause the video. Okay, these are all limb bones in the arm. I'll do both of those at the same time. Okay, there we go. Pause the video, do you know that one? Okay, pause the video. Okay, pause the video. Alright, nice little quick quiz for you. Okay, right, types of muscles. Make sure that you know which ones are which. The cardiac muscle, look out for branching fibers, okay? Cardiac muscle, all right? Smooth muscle just has these simple structures you can see, okay? Cardiac muscle has the branching fibers. Skeletal muscles just have these long fibers, many cells that are fused together, okay? All right, look at the pictures. Make sure you recognize the pictures, okay? All right, so you recognize and can say which one is which. All right, okay, so those are the types of muscles. All right, all muscles move by contraction, okay? So you got tendons, all right? Skeletal muscles attached to bones, so it's muscle to bone through tendons. Okay, when a muscle contracts, it pulls on the tendon, which pulls the bone to move it, okay? So make sure that you know that, all right? There's no flexibility with the tendon, just pulls straight up as soon as the calf muscle contracts. The Achilles tendon pulls on the bone right at the bottom and allows your heel to move, and that is how you walk. Antagonistic muscle action. Right, okay, so these two are antagonistic muscles in your arm. Okay, your biceps and your triceps. When the bicep muscle contracts, your tricep muscle relaxes, okay? When the bicep relaxes, the tricep contracts, okay? Now that allows your elevation of items with your arms. Antagonistic, because when one does one thing, the other one does the opposite, okay? So muscles all around your body move and work antagonistically, okay? So at least learn the antagonistic muscles in your arm. Do you remember when I asked you to do the diagrams of those? Make sure that you know these, okay? Make sure that you know them. Make sure you know the bicep and the tricep are antagonistic muscles, right? Types of joints. Okay, so we've got fixed joints where the bones meet, all right? So fixed joints, the bones cannot move, all right? That's an example of that, okay? That's the skull. Okay, fixed joints in the skull, all right? And then you've got spine and neck joints, okay? So those are pivot joints. See the pivot, okay? Little pivot there. There's a movable joints, okay, right at the top of the spine. Freely movable ones are called synovial joints, okay? They actually contain a fluid called synovial fluid, okay? And that acts as a lubricant. It makes it less jerky, the movement. So, for example, move your shoulder around, move your elbow joint around, okay? Ball and socket joints on your shoulder and your hip, okay? Allows you to catch a ball and to kick a ball, all right? The rounded head of one bone fits into the socket of the other, and the bones are held together by ligaments, all right? And there's cartilage and there's synovial fluid as well that allows a reduction of friction. This is a ball and socket joint, okay? These are the hinge joints, okay? Make sure that you can label each one, all right? Make sure, here we go, pause, okay? Try and get all of these done. See if you can get all of those labels done. Can you get all those labels done? There we go, all right? Can you get all of these labels done? Okay, try and label all of those, all right? And then you got that one done. Here we go, all right, ligaments, okay? All right, and remember we were making prosthetic limbs. We had quite a few who made some great ones, so I've already assessed you with that, so the prosthetic limbs may not come too much in your test, and that's it, okay? So best of luck. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please go through it. Now you should be ready for your test. Best of luck, guys.